We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. Super Bowl 55 Chiefs, Bucks. If you've been with us all season, definitely check out the predictions video that I dropped a few days ago with all of my official picks, but also the picks from my regular guests. I'll link to that in the description. Final thoughts with Sigmund Bloom, co-owner of footballguys.com, who just celebrated their 4,000th podcast episode yesterday. Sig, first off, congrats. Second, that prediction video that I was just talking about with all my regular guests is now the most popular video I've ever dropped on this channel. But we did save your official pick for last for this video. So if people want that, they're going to have to stick around until the end. So before we get there, how are you? It's an exciting week for sure. Obviously, the big podcast, the Super Bowl, it's good times.
It is. And also, the coaching changes are set. I think there's just a few openings left. Minnesota offensive coordinator, Green Bay defensive coordinator. We can already start to picture next season. We can already start to think about what are we going to be paying close attention to. Free agency, the draft. There's still this Deshaun Watson. We've already had Matthew Stafford, our big trade. So that's the thing, right? Like when Bill Belichick would win a Super Bowl, he would say, we're weeks behind everybody else. Not right. Yay, we won. Right. So that's the nature of the NFL, and I think it's the nature of the business we do. So it's great that you can already be stimulated by what's coming next, even though we have a very stimulating game to put a punctuation mark on this season.
Yeah, as far as final thoughts, this is going to be an interesting one. I'm normally a little bit more checked out by this time of the year, Sig. Like most of the DFS stuff is done, season long is done. So this is kind of the point of the year where content kind of takes a back seat and I get to kind of sit back as the fan, which I definitely plan on doing for the Super Bowl, by the way. But we kept things going a little bit longer. Obviously, appreciate you jumping on for the Super Bowl. We talked through it last week, but also like I think that not a ton has changed. We can talk about some of the key storylines, of course. Obviously, there's some COVID implications that we're still kind of waiting to iron out. But I guess like as like the week has gone on, we haven't seen a ton really happen in the betting markets. A lot of people they're holding strong at this -3 favorite number for Kansas City. So anything that has happened throughout this week that has changed your mind a ton, or are we still kind of trying to figure out, is it going to be business as usual for the Chiefs, or everyone wants to talk about the offensive line issues? Honestly, the defense could be the story on both sides of the ball, which is probably something we're not talking about enough. But I guess as we progress through this, we're getting close. Has anything changed for you so far?
Nothing has really changed. Watching some things like looks like Antoine Winfield's going to play. Looks like Antonio Brown could play. Jordan Whitehead, who had those 2 forced fumbles in the NFC title game, we're waiting to see on that. I think we're going to see him. I'm not sure how effective he'll be. I thought it was really interesting that Travis Kelce brought up that he knows they haven't beaten Brady and Gronkowski yet. Mm-hmm. That was always the case with the Steelers. When the Steelers would make the Super Bowl, it would be because somebody else took out the Patriots.
Right.
The Steelers could never get over that Patriots hump. So that's interesting because I wonder, Joe, if that's like motivation, like trying to come up with some motivation. Not that you necessarily need that much motivation, but generally, when you win a Super Bowl, it takes away that hunger, that feeling like you can't live without the idea of winning the Super Bowl. But no, nothing's really changing. And I think it's great to see if the betting markets are communicating what you say they are, basically that 3 points is about the right spread for this game, considering how good this Chiefs team has played in the playoffs.
Right.
It sets up for a tremendous game, a game fitting of a Super Bowl, right? We've seen this past week anniversaries, right? Anniversary of the Malcolm Butler interception, anniversary of the James Harrison interception, anniversaries of the Giants, Patriots, big plays and things like that. And I think we're going to have that kind of game. I think we're going to have a game when you think about the personality of Andy Reid, and you think about the personality of Bruce Arians and Mahomes and Brady and so on down the line, that they're going to leave it all out there. And we'll certainly see. I know the Chiefs took a few quarters to wake up last year, and that seemed to be their pattern. This year, and it's not. This year, and what really is encouraging, I think, for Chiefs fans out there is that they had a game plan tailored to what they could work with against the Bills, and it worked magnificently. Tyreek Hill had what in the first quarter against the Bucs the first time?
Over 200 yards.
Over 200 yards.
Exactly.
So that's going to be job one for the Bucs defense, and otherwise attacking this piecemeal offensive line. And then with the Bucks offense, it will be interesting to see if Tom Brady executes really, because I think if you iron out some of the erratic play he's had, this is a very tough defense. So I think we're going to see a lot of lead changes. I think we're going to see a lot of breathtaking emotional turns in this game. And it's the kind of game that no matter how it ends, you would think, well, if we played it again tomorrow, it could be completely different.
Yeah, honestly, we probably haven't spent enough time talking through some of these storylines. Like, I think the Brady versus Mahomes thing, like in a lot of ways, exactly what you just said. Like, this team could be on an even bigger run if they were to get the ball first in overtime a couple years ago. But also, like, these guys take these things personally in a lot of ways. So we have maybe not the passing of the torch yet, but you never know when Mahomes and Brady are going to be on this stage ever again. And it's probably counting our chickens a little bit too quickly on Mahomes. But if we get 5-6 years from now and Mahomes has a couple Super Bowls, the comparisons are going to happen. What's always going to sit there for Mahomes if he loses this game is that Brady beat him in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So I think that matters. I definitely think that matters. And the fact that we have Gronkowski in this, I never even thought about that angle for Travis Kelce. Like Gronkowski, the Super Bowls, obviously Travis Kelce, the years that he's been having. This is like a head-to-head battle for like possibly like 5-6 years from now. We're thinking about like who was the better duo, right? So that's like really exciting. I actually didn't even think about the Gronk and Kelce thing, so that'll be super interesting. I guess. Do you think that like am I off base there? Do you think in a couple of years we'll be talking about specifically like this game being one of the bigger games that Mahomes will ever have?
Yeah, well, and it could be the game that just determines whether this is a Chiefs team that really has a dynasty kind of run, or they're a very good team that returns to the Super Bowl, intermittently every 3 or 4 years or something like that. But Josh Allen gets his turn, Deshaun Watson gets his turn. That's still in the background, by the way.
Yeah.
That's percolating, heating up.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy. This is a Super Bowl preview show, but it is crazy because a quarterback, the quality of Watson at the point he's at in his career never hits the market except now.
I'm about to lose another thing in my office, Sig. Like that is just like it is the worst. Every year there's turnover, but now I thought like having a Deshaun Watson at autograph photo would have been relatively safe, right? Like what are they doing letting this guy go?
You really need to make a catalog list of everything in your office so we know what to look for that's jinxed for the upcoming year. So no, I don't think that's off base at all. And I think that for Mahomes, it would have to be satisfying to actually beat Brady. Because imagine if he doesn't get an opportunity to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Then that'll always be hanging over him. And I think that what's most fascinating when you look at Brady versus Mahomes is just how different their auras are. With Brady, it's like all the screws are turned as tight as they can be turned, And while he does have a sort of breezy attitude about his stardom and about his quality, all-time GOAT, all that stuff, you can tell that he takes this very, 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 very seriously.
Yeah.
He takes winning very seriously. He takes it all very seriously. Where Patrick Mahomes is cool as the other side of the pillow. I mean, he's just everything just rolls off of him. He can laugh at himself on the field, like when he makes a bad play on the field. Or with Tom Brady, you're used to seeing that discouraged look or the anger. You never see Patrick Mahomes expressing anything negative, really. And I think that adding in that extra layer of Andy Reid, who's also very cool and level-headed, versus Bruce Arians, who just shoots from the hip and just wears his emotions on his sleeve. I think it sets up a wonderful contrast. And I do think that there's a satisfaction that would come with beating this team. But I also think that the Bucks have a little bit of this invincibility vibe about them right now. Not that they're truly invincible, but I think we can look back, Joe, because so much happens, right? I mean, when Brady decided to go to Tampa, it was just the very beginning of the coronavirus, very beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
I don't think that mass psychological change, certainly not the changes in our behavior, had happened yet. It feels so long ago.
It does.
And sure enough, we follow that story all the way to the end, and here they are in the Super Bowl. Remember what happened in the Super Bowl odds when Brady signed there? And here they are in the Super Bowl, and it's setting up a tremendous story. I think something that makes it seem like we spend so much time paying attention to football, Joe. It's like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I doing this? But these kinds of games, I think, tell us why, give us that satisfying end to the season that makes us understand why it felt so important to watch all of these games all along.
Yeah, I mean, we're not quite to 4,000 episodes, Sig, but I think we had over 50 this year, so it's a
Yeah.
decent start. I think that one thing that I kind of want to do the inverse on what we've done on some of these other shows,
Okay.
right? I just did a prop show, a bet show with Rich Rebar, which will be up on the channel, so everyone should check that out. But also, we talked about the MVP odds. Like a lot of times, it is these quarterbacks, right? Brady, Mahomes, they have to be far and away the clear favorites, right? So there's that. I want to ask you if it is a non-quarterback, who would the MVP be? But also, like everyone seems to be pretty convinced that Kansas City has this in hand right now, despite all the offensive line issues. So, number one, a non-quarterback MVP, but also, how can it go wrong for the Chiefs in your eyes?
Super Bowl, a non-quarterback. I mean, Tyreek Hill's too easy.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelce's probably too easy. Maybe Devin White.
Okay. It's hard, right? Because even when we saw Edelman win it a couple years ago, like that was just such a condensed like target tree in general, right? So it made sense that Edelman could have had one of those performances. Yeah, Tyreek Hill, Kelce, we could see them having like a really big game. I think like the long shots are even kind of interesting on like the defensive side of the ball. Maybe it's someone on Tampa Bay that gets 3 sacks in this game or something like that. Could you see that happening?
And that's what I'm thinking with Devin White, right? And Devin White just had a massive game, an MVP kind of game against the Saints. He was in the middle of a lot of those turnovers that turned that game. And I think we can go back to maybe the most memorable Tom Brady winning Super Bowl over Atlanta. I think Grady Jarrett was in line to win the MVP in that game if they had not completed that comeback. And the reason I say Devin White is you should always have a why or a hypothesis. And it's maybe this offensive line for Kansas City can hold up at the point of attack, but can they handle making the correct reads on blitzes? Can they handle if Todd Bowles is throwing? And it's Devin White, right? I mean, you think about like medieval warfare, Joe. Like you put Devin White in the catapult or the trebuchet, I think for the real students of medieval warfare, and you just hurl him at Patrick Mahomes, whose mobility might be slightly limited, but also I think you're going to be able to create free lanes for him. And we saw him, I don't know how many sacks he had this year, but when he had a bead, like missile lock, like lock, he got his guy and he destroyed his guy. And I think that Todd Bowles knows that while Patrick Mahomes is good against the blitz, well-timed blitzes with somebody like Devin White can turn the game. And like you said, maybe someone like Shaq Barrett, maybe someone like Jason Pierre-Paul. If Tampa wins the game, one of those guys will have made some big plays. So that's how you can kind of work backwards and find your unlikely MVP.
All right, so we've worked backwards and we've kind of buried the lead a little bit here, but we have some people on one side of this game and the other side of this game straight up, at least among my guests. It's finally time. Who are you on, Sig? Is it KC or is it Tampa Bay who wins the Super Bowl?
I want to pick Tampa. I want to pick Tampa because, it's a fun story for the fans. It's a fun story for the city. I love Bruce Arians. I like Byron Leftwich. I like a lot of the personalities in this organization. But in the moment of truth, it's so difficult to pick against the Chiefs. And here's why. Yes, the Bucs have won 3 straight games on the road to end up in the Super Bowl. But, if Washington had, they didn't land Matthew Stafford, but like imagine Washington with Matthew Stafford in that wild card game. Is the outcome foregone conclusion? I don't think so. The Saints and all of their turnovers were the difference in that game. The Bucs didn't blow the Saints out of their own building. The Saints had unforced errors. Aaron Rodgers, and I know it's a lot to say Aaron Rodgers had to play at an MVP level, but that's what he'd been doing all year, and he didn't. There were some plays that were there for Aaron Rodgers to make that even with the Aaron Jones fumble that turned into 7 points, even with the gift touchdown they gave them at the end of the first half, the Packers could have won that game. If Aaron Rodgers had made 2 or 3 better reads in the red zone, or maybe if Matt LaFleur had given him a chance on 4th and goal at the 8, we might be talking about a different matchup. Will Kansas City make those unforced errors? Will Patrick Mahomes miss those opportunities?
Probably not.
I don't think so. Now, I do think that Todd Bowles in this defense can create those opportunities. That's what you're, I think, gambling on if you're betting on Tampa. But I think it's very difficult because Kansas City had every reason to come into this postseason and not be at the level that they were last year. And in fact, the second half of the year and the way they kind of coasted and paced themselves made you think, well, can they just turn it on? Yes, they can just turn it on. Super Bowl Sunday, they'll turn it on. And I think they'll bring home the second straight Lombardi trophy.
Sigmund Bloom, everybody. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. Of course, footballguys.com as we transition into more off-season fantasy football conversation. Sig, last segment. Just want to thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. It's been, I know it's a big commitment. Obviously, something like this that's weekly, even if it's a smaller segment. I definitely appreciate it. It's been a thrill to get to know you better. Obviously, talk football each and every week. Hopefully, we got football guys some more exposure along the way, and can do it again next year, my man. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll talk soon, man. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure to get to work with you. I'll miss it and to spend time with your lovely audience. And I look forward to the chance to do it again.